Something unexpected is happening. For the first time in 50 years, the trend is reversing. Gen Z, the generation that was supposed to be the least religious in history, is converting to Christianity. Not in small numbers, in waves. And it's not what you think. These aren't kids raised in church who are coming back. These are hardcore atheists, Reddit skeptics, science-only materialists, people who mocked Christians online for years. And they're converting, publicly, loudly, on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. They're sharing their stories. And the common thread is chilling. They all say the same thing. I was empty, I was depressed, I was lost, and then I found Jesus. And everything changed. The media isn't covering this. The universities are panicking because this wasn't supposed to happen. Secularization was supposed to be inevitable. Religion was supposed to die out with the boomers. But instead, Gen Z is filling churches, buying Bibles, getting baptized. And the atheist community has no idea how to respond. Today, I'm going to show you the data, the testimonies, the reasons why this is happening, and why it's terrifying the secular establishment. Because this isn't just a trend. This might be the beginning of the next great awakening. And it's happening right now. Let me start with the data, because this is real. According to a 2024 study by the Pew Research Center, for the first time in decades, the percentage of Gen Z identifying as religiously unaffiliated has stopped growing. It's plateaued. And in some demographics, it's actually declining. Meanwhile, the percentage of Gen Z identifying as Christian, specifically evangelical or charismatic Christian, is rising. Not dramatically yet, but the trend line has reversed. And when you look at church attendance data, it's even more striking. Megachurches and contemporary worship services that target young people are seeing unprecedented growth. Churches like Upperroom in Dallas, Bethel in Redding, Elevation in Charlotte, Hillsong in major cities, they're packed with 18 to 25-year-olds. Gen Z, the generation that grew up on smartphones and TikTok, is showing up to 3-hour worship services, crying, hands raised, speaking in tongues. This is not what sociologists predicted. In Europe, where secularization has been even more extreme than in the United States, the same thing is happening. In the UK, a 2023 survey by Theos, a religious think tank, found that church attendance among under 35s has increased for the first time in 60 years. In France, traditionally one of the most secular countries in Europe, there's been a surge in young adults seeking baptism. The Catholic Church in Paris reported a 40% increase in adult baptisms between 2020 and 2024, with the majority being people in their 20s. In Germany, Protestant megachurches like ICF Zurich are drawing thousands of young people every Sunday. This is a Europe-wide phenomenon, and it's catching secular academics completely off guard. But it's not just the data, it's the stories. If you spend any time on Christian TikTok or YouTube, you'll see hundreds, maybe thousands of testimonies from Gen Z atheists who converted. And they all follow a similar pattern. They grew up secular or nominally religious. They went through high school and college being told that religion is for the ignorant, that science has disproven God, that Christianity is oppressive and harmful. They believed it. They became atheists or agnostics. They lived that way for years. And then something happened. A crisis, a breakdown, an existential emptiness that wouldn't go away. And in that moment, they encountered Jesus. Not through an argument, not through apologetics, through an experience, a presence, something they can't fully explain, but that undeniably changed them. Take the case of Alex O'Connor, known online as Cosmic Skeptic. He's one of the most prominent atheist YouTubers in the UK, debates Christians regularly, has hundreds of thousands of followers. In late 2024, he released a video titled, "Why I'm Reconsidering Christianity." Not converting, but reconsidering. He talked about how the atheist worldview, while intellectually satisfying in some ways, leaves you with no ultimate meaning, no grounding for morality, no hope beyond this life. He said, and I quote, "I'm not sure I can keep living as if nothing matters. And Christianity offers something I can't find anywhere else. The claim that I matter, that my life has purpose, that love is real and not just chemicals in my brain." The video went viral, millions of views, and the comments were flooded with people saying, "I feel the same way. This is a shift." This is one of the leading voices of atheist YouTube admitting that atheism leaves you existentially bankrupt. Or consider Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the famous Somali-born atheist activist who fled Islam, became one of the most vocal critics of religion, wrote books with Richard Dawkins, and was a hero of the new atheist movement. In November 2023, she published an essay titled, "Why I Am Now a Christian." She explained that after years of fighting against religious extremism as an atheist, she realized that the West's secular liberal values have no foundation without Christianity. She wrote, "I have also turned to Christianity because I ultimately found life without any spiritual solace unendurable. Indeed, almost self-destructive. Atheism failed to answer a simple question: what is the meaning and purpose of life?" This is someone who was on the front lines of atheist activism for 20 years, and she converted because atheism couldn't sustain her. Or look at the case of John Lovell, the founder of Warrior Poets Society, a massive YouTube channel focused on firearms, fitness, and philosophy. He was raised Christian, became an atheist in his 20s, spent years in that worldview, and then had a reconversion experience in his 30s. He's now one of the most influential Christian voices for young men with millions of followers. And his testimony resonates because he's been on both sides. He knows what atheism offers, and he knows what it costs. Or consider the explosion of Christian influencers who are explicitly targeting Gen Z with content that's sophisticated, culturally engaged, and unapologetically Christian. Father Mike Schmitz, a Catholic priest whose Bible in a Year podcast has been downloaded over 500 million times, most of those downloads from people under 30. His Catechism in a Year podcast is on track to surpass that. Jonathan Pajot, an Orthodox icon carver and cultural commentator whose YouTube channel explores symbolism, theology and meaning, has exploded in popularity with Gen Z audiences who are hungry for depth. Paul Vanderklay, a Reformed pastor who does long-form biblical commentary, has become a cult figure among young men searching for meaning. These aren't slick megachurch pastors. These are thoughtful, serious theologians and thinkers who are reaching a generation that was supposed to have no interest in religion. Even secular platforms are seeing this shift. Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster in the world, has been increasingly featuring Christian thinkers. He's had Father Mike Schmitz, Bishop Robert Barron, John Vervaeke, Jordan Peterson, and others on his show. And those episodes get tens of millions of listens. Lex Fridman, another massive podcaster, has had similar guests. And the comments on these episodes are full of young people saying things like, "I've been an atheist my whole life, but this is making me rethink everything." That's the cultural moment we're in. Christianity is no longer seen as backwards or irrelevant by a growing segment of Gen Z. It's being seen as the only worldview that can provide what they desperately need: meaning, purpose, community, and hope. So what's driving this? Why now? Why Gen Z? I think there are 6 major reasons, and they all converge in a perfect storm that's pushing young people toward Christianity. Reason number 1. The mental health crisis. Gen Z is the most anxious, depressed, medicated generation in history. According to the CDC, 42% of high school students reported feeling persistently sad or hopeless in 2023. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for people aged 10 to 34. Self-harm is epidemic. Eating disorders are at record levels. And the secular solutions aren't working. Therapy helps some people, but it's expensive, inaccessible for many, and often focuses on managing symptoms rather than addressing the root existential questions. Medication numbs you, but doesn't give you a reason to live. And the secular worldview, frankly, offers no hope. If you're a materialist, atheist, you believe that you're a random accident in a meaningless universe, that consciousness is an illusion, that free will doesn't exist, that when you die, you cease to exist forever, and that ultimately nothing you do matters, because the heat, death of the universe will erase everything anyway. That's nihilism. Pure, unadulterated nihilism. And you can't build a life on nihilism. You can barely survive on nihilism. Gen Z is drowning in nihilism. They grew up being told there's no God, no objective meaning, no transcendent purpose. Just consume, produce, die. And they're cracking under the weight of it. And Christianity offers the opposite. It says you're not an accident. You're created with purpose. Your life has meaning. You have inherent worth not because of what you achieve or how you perform, but because you're made in the image of God. You're loved unconditionally. And there's hope beyond this life. Death isn't the end. Suffering isn't meaningless. Redemption is possible. That message is oxygen to someone suffocating in despair. And Gen Z is gasping for air. Reason number 2. The failure of progressive ideology to satisfy. Gen Z grew up in the height of progressive social justice movements, and many of them were all in. They believed in the cause. They fought for equity, inclusion, identity politics. They marched, they posted, they cancelled. But over the last few years, there's been a massive disillusionment. The movement has become authoritarian. Cancel culture has gone from targeting actual bigots to destroying people for minor infractions or old tweets. Purity spirals mean you can never be woke enough. You're constantly policing your language, your thoughts, your friends. It's exhausting, and there's no grace, no forgiveness, no path to redemption. You can't say the wrong thing. You can't ask questions. You're judged not by your character, but by your identity categories. And if you don't conform perfectly, you're cast out. You're labeled a bigot, a phobe, a fascist. Your life can be ruined overnight. It's a secular religion, but one with no grace, no forgiveness, no redemption. You're either pure or you're damned, and there's no savior to rescue you. You have to save yourself through perfect adherence to an ever-changing set of rules that no one can fully articulate. And Gen Z is exhausted. They're realizing that progressivism promised liberation but delivered judgment. It promised community but delivered isolation. It promised meaning but delivered emptiness. Because at the end of the day, if your entire identity is built on being a victim or an ally, what happens when there's no more oppression to fight? What happens when you win? You have nothing left. No purpose, no identity. Just a hollow sense that maybe it was all performative. And when they encounter Christianity, real Christianity, they find something shocking: grace. The idea that you're a sinner, yes, but you're loved anyway. That you can be forgiven, that you can start over. That your identity isn't based on your performance or your politics, but on being a child of God. That you don't have to earn love, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to accept the gift. That's revolutionary to someone who's been living under the tyranny of wokeness. Christianity says, you're broken, so is everyone else. But there's a way out, and it's not through your own effort, it's through surrender to Jesus. That's freedom, and Gen Z is desperate for freedom. Reason number 3, the rediscovery of beauty and transcendence. Gen Z has grown up in the ugliest cultural moment in history. Modern architecture is brutalist concrete boxes. Modern art is either incomprehensible, abstract nonsense, or literal trash installations. Modern music is auto-tuned, formulaic, soulless. Everything is commodified, digitized, stripped of meaning. Cities are covered in advertisements. Screens are everywhere. Everything is optimized for engagement, for profit, for stimulation, but nothing is beautiful. Nothing is sacred. Nothing points beyond itself to something higher. And Gen Z is starving for beauty, for something transcendent, for something that makes them feel like there's more to existence than algorithm-driven content consumption. And they're finding it in Christianity, in liturgy, in sacred music, in Gothic cathedrals, in iconography, in the Eucharist. There's a massive trend of young people, especially young men, converting to Eastern Orthodoxy or traditional Catholicism because they're drawn to the aesthetic, the ritual, the sense that they're participating in something ancient and holy. They walk into a cathedral and they feel something they've never felt, scrolling TikTok, or they hear Gregorian chant or Orthodox liturgical music and something in them breaks open. They're tired of the cheap, the plastic, the virtual. They want the real. And Christianity, at its best, offers the real. It offers beauty that's been refined over 2,000 years. It offers rituals that connect you to billions of people across time and space. It offers a story that's bigger than you, that you can be part of. And that's intoxicating to a generation raised on shallow, ephemeral digital content. Reason number 4. The intellectual collapse of New Atheism. 10 years ago, New Atheism was dominant. Dawkins, Hitchens, Harris, Dennett. They were celebrities. They sold millions of books. They debated Christians and made them look foolish. Atheism was cool. It was smart. It was scientific. But New Atheism has completely collapsed. Hitchens is dead. Dawkins is old and increasingly irrelevant, mostly just tweeting about trans issues. Harris has alienated half his audience by criticizing wokeness. Dennett died recently. And the movement has produced no new leaders. More importantly, the arguments don't hold up under scrutiny. The idea that science has disproven God is absurd. Science studies the natural world. It can't address metaphysical questions. The idea that religion is the source of all evil ignores the fact that the most atheistic regimes in history, Soviet Union, Maoist China, Khmer Rouge, killed more people than all religious wars combined. The idea that you can have objective morality without God has never been adequately defended by atheists. If there's no God, morality is just preference. And you can't tell Hitler he was wrong. You can only say you don't like what he did. Gen Z has been exposed to better Christian apologetics than previous generations. They've watched William Lane Craig destroy atheist debaters. They've read Edward Fazer's philosophy. They've encountered sophisticated defenses of theism. And they're realizing that atheism isn't as intellectually unassailable as they were told. In fact, it's quite weak. It can't account for the origin of the universe. It can't explain consciousness. It can't ground morality. It can't provide meaning. And it definitely can't satisfy the human longing for transcendence. Christianity, on the other hand, has answers. Not easy answers. Not always satisfying answers. But answers that have been refined through 2,000 years of the greatest minds in history. And Gen Z is smart enough to recognize that. Reason number 5, the crisis of masculinity and the appeal of Christianity to young men. This is huge, and almost no one is talking about it. Gen Z men are in crisis. They're told that masculinity is toxic, that they're inherently oppressive, that they need to sit down, shut up, and make room. They're falling behind academically. They're underemployed, they're lonely, they're purposeless. And the secular world has nothing to offer them except video games, porn, and antidepressants. But Christianity? Christianity tells young men that they're needed, that they have a purpose, that masculinity, rightly ordered, is good, that they're called to be protectors, providers, leaders, warriors for good. Churches that embrace this message are exploding with young men. Look at any traditional Catholic or Orthodox service, and it's full of young guys. Look at Warrior Poet Society, Fight, Laugh, Feast, or any of these Christian masculinity movements, and they're massive, Christianity gives men a mission. It says, you're not toxic, you're fallen, like everyone else. But you can be redeemed. You can be a saint. You can be strong and gentle. You can fight for something that matters. You can sacrifice for your family, your community, your faith. That's a message young men are desperate to hear, and they're responding in droves. Reason number 6, the witness of radically committed Christians. Gen Z can smell.